Rachel Myers never intended to become anyone's savior. She was just a young woman working at a modest diner on the edge of Charleston, South Carolina, trying to juggle nursing school, night shifts, and dreams bigger than her bank account. Life hadn't handed her much, but she held on to the one thing it hadn't taken, her heart. One rainy afternoon, as she tossed the last uneaten meals into the bin, she caught sight of a figure across the street, slumped under a soaked hoodie, arms wrapped tightly around himself, shivering. His clothes were tattered, boots splitting at the seams. He looked invisible to the world, and the world seemed content with that. She hesitated. Then, without thinking, she boxed up a hot meal, wrapped it carefully, and dashed out into the rain. "Hey," she said gently. "You hungry?" He looked up, startled. His face was rugged and worn, eyes guarded yet oddly gentle. He nodded slowly. "My name's Rachel," she offered as she handed him the food. "Daniel," he murmured, barely audible. That day began a quiet tradition. Every evening after her shift, she'd set aside a plate, meatloaf, biscuits, maybe a slice of pie, and take it to Daniel. They rarely spoke much at first. He'd thank her with a nod, and she'd smile and head off into the night. But as days turned to weeks, and weeks into months, walls began to crumble. Daniel started sharing small pieces of his story. He'd been a Marine, honorably discharged after an IED in Afghanistan left him wounded both inside and out. PTSD. Disconnection. No family left to anchor him. After years of trying to stay afloat, he just sank. Rachel listened. She didn't judge, didn't offer solutions, just showed up with a warm meal and warmer presence. "You're the only person who sees me," he once said, eyes glistening. "You treat me like I matter." "You do matter," she replied softly. Her kindness wasn't performative. She never took photos. Never told anyone, not even her fiancé, Jason. She just did it because it felt right. Years passed. Rachel graduated, became a full-time nurse. Life got busier, but she still made time for Daniel. Sometimes she'd bring him fresh socks or a book she thought he'd like. When the city forced the homeless encampment to relocate, she found him again. No matter what, she kept showing up. One winter, Daniel disappeared. She searched, asked around, but no one had seen him. She feared the worst. Months later, she received a handwritten note at the hospital where she worked. "Rachel. You saved me. Not with food, but with dignity. I've been picked up by a veterans outreach program. I'm clean. I'm safe. I'm working again. I never said thank you properly, but I will. I promise. Daniel." Tears welled in her eyes. That letter became her most treasured possession, tucked away behind her nursing ID. Years later, Rachel stood in a white lace dress on a warm spring afternoon, her heart pounding not from nerves, but from joy. She was finally marrying Jason, her college sweetheart, a kind, hard-working firefighter who adored her every bit as much as she adored him. The ceremony was held in her grandfather's backyard, under a canopy of soft lights and magnolia trees. Friends and family beamed with joy as the couple exchanged vows. Then, just as the officiant declared, "You may now kiss the bride," a rumble echoed from down the dirt road. Everyone turned. A military Humvee rolled into view. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd as the vehicle pulled up and parked. Out stepped 12 Marines, dressed in full uniform, standing in perfect formation. At the front was Daniel. Older now, but standing tall. His face was clean-shaven, his posture straight, eyes no longer hollow but full of quiet pride. Rachel gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Jason leaned in. "Do you know them?" She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Daniel stepped forward and addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady, "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Staff Sergeant Daniel R. Harlan, retired. A few years ago, I was homeless. I was broken. Forgotten. And I probably wouldn't be standing here today if not for one woman's relentless kindness. He turned to Rachel, eyes misting. She never asked for anything. She never told a soul. She just kept showing up with food, warmth, and grace. I didn't just regain my strength, I regained my worth. Because of her, I reached out for help. I got the support I needed. I rebuilt my life. And I met others like me, veterans who had fallen through the cracks. He gestured to the men behind him. These are my brothers. Each one of them was touched by her story. Each of them is here because, like me, they were pulled from the dark by the ripple of one woman's kindness. Today, we wanted to return the favor. Then, in perfect unison, the 12 Marines lifted their hands in salute. For your courage, compassion, and quiet heroism, Daniel said, we salute you, Nurse Rachel Myers. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Even the stoic Marines had glassy eyes. Rachel, stunned, walked forward. Daniel stepped closer, pulling out a small, velvet box. Inside was a silver pendant, etched with the Marine Corps emblem and the words, "Honor through compassion." "We had this made for you," he said. "It's not regulation. But it's from the heart." Rachel couldn't speak. She simply embraced him, holding on to a man who had once been a stranger, now family. The rest of the wedding continued, but something had shifted. The joy was deeper now, layered with meaning. Those Marines didn't just stay for the ceremony, they danced, laughed, and celebrated. They were no longer forgotten warriors. They were honored guests. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and fireflies lit the sky, Rachel sat beside Jason, watching their guests laugh around a bonfire. "You never told me about Daniel," Jason said, wrapping his arm around her. "I didn't think I needed to," she smiled. "It wasn't about me." Jason kissed her forehead. "Well, I'm glad the world knows now. You're incredible." Rachel leaned her head against his shoulder, heart full. In the days that followed, the story spread. First through the wedding guests, then through social media. Photos of the 12 Marines saluting the bride went viral. News stations picked it up. Letters poured in. Donations to veteran outreach programs surged. But Rachel never sought attention. She continued her work as a nurse, now volunteering weekends with the very outreach program that helped Daniel. Kindness, she believed, should be quiet. Humble. But that day reminded her of something even deeper. Kindness may be quiet, but its echoes can be thunderous. And sometimes, one sandwich can save 12 lives.